klausies partneri noziegumā kopā ar Ādamu Croftu un Robertu Daws.
Hello, welcome to Partners in Crime. Are you there, Bob?
I am, hello! There was a Latvian woman's voice just then.
There was a Latvian woman's voice. Yes, you should have been used to that. That was for you. It's
so impressive.
It's going to be a bit of an odd episode today. I've had 2.5 hours sleep. We'll get onto that in a moment. And Bob is in what we call Studio 2 and what everyone else would call Latvia.
Let me show you. Those who can see, I'm going to just take. There we are. That's the view from my hotel room, looking across the Daugava River. Yeah, and what's in the distance? And just in the distance there, with the sun behind it, is the National Library of Latvia, which is quite an impressive building that wouldn't look out of place in Bruce Wayne's Gotham City.
That's what you pay your Patreon money for, isn't it? An exclusive view of Riga, if you are a patron of ours and watching on the video. How is it over there? We've had a couple of weeks off, haven't we?
Yeah.
I did do a little explainer mini episode last week to let everyone know where we are. But do keep us up to speed. We've got to talk about something today. What are you doing?
Well, I'm in general, or what am I doing in Latvia?
Just in general.
I'm over here. I'm over here doing a film. Would you believe, or as they like to call it, a movie? They're doing a movie over here. He says in his sort of German accent. It was a quite interesting lead up to this because I got a phone call on a Friday night just over 3 weeks ago, from an old director friend of mine who happens to be the cinematographer on this particular movie. And he said, are you busy at the moment? And I said, well, strange to say that because like an awful lot of people in my profession, there hasn't been any work for months upon months upon months because theatres are closed and production has slowed down. You know, little bits and pieces are being made, but nothing. So I said, yeah, unexpectedly available. He said, have you got any plans for Monday? I said, well, I had actually got it down to go and do a little shopping in Lidl. He said, well, do you fancy coming to Latvia Monday morning? I said, well, let's think about that for a second. Yes, I said. So here I am playing a rather nice role, a nice leading role, opposite one Elizabeth Hurley and various...
Never heard of her.
Yes, and several other leading international artists of note, and having a great time. I can't mention what the film is because the actual official name hasn't come out, but we're making it, and it's great fun. It's one of those unexpected things that an awful lot of artists, actors, musicians or whatever, you sort of dream that maybe certain jobs will turn up out of the blue, and this one did turn out of the blue, actually, and I'm very, very grateful for it. So here I am. It's 2 months charging around Riga and the countryside of Latvia, and I'm having a very nice time. Although I am missing home, missing family, and have been missing partners in crime. But here we are.
Well, it sounds like a great role. So who dropped out then? I imagine there must have been quite a few.
No, no, it wasn't that. I mean, the part I'm playing is a German, and so they'd actually spent nearly 10 weeks sending the script to German actors, but an awful lot of the German actors didn't want to travel because of COVID. And I had COVID early in March, so it doesn't mean I can't catch it again, I guess. But and the German actors were either unavailable, doing other things, or because unlike the UK, there's been quite a sort of an explosion of production in Germany. So a lot of them are sort of catching up with work that was being postponed, and many of the other actors that they were approaching, German actors, didn't want to go because of health concerns. So my friend, who's a cinematographer on this, and our friend Roger Simons, who was one of our first guests, made that phone call and he said, "Look, when I read the script, he said very sweetly, he said, I thought of you." Straight away because of the character description, wait, that's a perfect cue for you. And and he said, but of course, because the character's German, so he said, how's your German accent? So I said, about as good as my horse riding. And which is the other question you always get as an actor: can you ride a horse? You always say, yes, of course I can. So he said, as long as it's not too hello, we're going to be fine. So here I am playing a German over here, and so trying not to sound like Clouseau, really. A head of dump on the head, you know. So yeah, we're having good fun, and that's why I am here. But I'm back for Christmas, thank goodness.
You're not the new James Bond, then?
No, I'm not. But I'll tell you what. I do find myself doing the odd sit up now, and I have managed to find, because I've had a very short haircut, and I realise that I'm heading to sort of. Well, it's my gaping tonsure at the back is meeting my gaping baldness at the front. So I've bought some nice volume increasing shampoo and conditioner to give the sort of James Bond look. So let's face it, I'm sure I'm in the running. I just wait here on a daily basis for Barbara Broccoli to call.
Yes.
And say, hi Barb, what are you doing? I'll say I'm in Latvia, and she'll say, please stay there.
I'm in Latvia with Elizabeth Hurley. Yeah, that volume increasing shampoo does really work. As you can see, I use it regularly. It's brilliant. Well, we're going to be touching on politics, funnily enough, a couple of times in this show. Not just the reason that I've been up all night and awake for 2.5 hours. And in fact, we're recording this at about 2:00 in the afternoon UK time. So I'm starting to flag a little bit as we record this. It's on the Wednesday, and I think we all know what happened on the Tuesday night, what I was staying up to watch. But
which is still happening
as we speak. It is still going on. Yeah, we were having a little chat before this, weren't we? And said that we'd both sort of stayed up and watched it. And 24 hours later, we're still none the wiser. It seems to be a completely pointless exercise. You might as well have just gone to sleep and woken up knowing as little as we did before we went to bed. But there we are.
Well, it was always on the cards, and it's playing out. Unfortunately, as people suggested it would do. I mean, depending on what your political leanings are. I mean, the biggest surprise, I guess, it's got nothing to do with crime fiction, but maybe one day in a court case that may or may not take place, it will fit into that. It seems that many, well, about 65 million so far, people in America think that their president has behaved perfectly well and acceptably, and are all for him. Of course, there's just as many people who are voting against him. It's a divided nation, let's put it.
Probably about 5 million more by the looks of things, at least. But we'll see how that goes. I think in terms of the crime, I think that's probably yet to come. I think that will probably reveal itself in the coming weeks.
Yes, exactly. Well, he's given warning of it. I mean, hasn't he? He's actually said, I mean, by the time people listen to this, we'll know what the situation is. So,
it'll be old hat by then, won't it?
Will make no difference at all. But at this particular stage in the game, we just await votes and probably lawyers and court cases and all the other ghastliness. Because let's face it, Trump ain't going easily.
He's not.
But that tends to be the way with dictators.
He's not. And in fact, I'm going to shuffle my papers a little bit here because Don Winslow has been talking a lot about Donald Trump, actually, in The Independent. They say, for anyone with a platform, Donald Trump's presidency comes with a choice. Should they, the artists, creative types, the famous ones, defend what they believe in? Or should they refrain from going political at a time when fans might readily forsake an artist's output if they don't land on the same side? For Don Winslow, The Independent says there is no debate. The author, with 22 books to his name, is one of the most heralded names in contemporary crime fiction. He's also one of the most outspoken anti-Trump activists in the current American literary landscape. Stephen King has called him one of America's greatest storytellers. It says here, while some people think of art and politics as two separate endeavours, the contrary proved true for him. Through his work as a novelist, he has researched topics such as drug policies, policing, prisons and immigration, which in turn deepened his political beliefs. It's quite an interesting article, actually, about how, not just on his political beliefs, but on the fact that actually crime fiction and politics do very much go hand in hand. And when you have people saying, "Oh, why are writers getting involved in politics? Why are they commenting on the state of the world?" It's our job. It's literally what we do. A lot of people do read just for the entertainment, just for the gory crime, just for the grisly bits. But there's a hell of a lot between the lines, which is very much behind what we do. Which leads me on to an article that I read in the Icelandic newspaper Grapevine this week, which of course I read from cover to cover every
I've seen
week.
you do it. It's not a pleasant sight.
No. The Prime Minister of Iceland, Katrín Jakobsdóttir,
Oh, yes. We know.
Yep. Has revealed she's planning on branching out into the world of fiction writing, according to Fréttablaðið, who reported that earlier in October. In an interview, she said that she and best-selling author Ragnar Jonsson talked about their planned collaboration, which they first discussed together in January. She said, and I've come to like her a lot, based on what she says here. She says, "We've had one meeting about the novel we're going to write together, which takes place in Reykjavik in 1986, but we've not discussed further because I have been busy." She continued, "I'm afraid Ragnar will write the book and I'll just get the thanks." They've said nothing more about it. Ragnar Jonsson has admitted that Katrín Jakobsdóttir has got a bit of extra pressure placed on her at the moment due to, global pandemic and stuff like that. So we shouldn't expect anything too soon. And of course, it goes on to mention what we've spoken about on Partners in Crime before, that Iceland is known for the huge amount of literature that's produced per head of population. 1 in 10 Icelanders will have their book published in their lifetime. And the Prime Minister herself has a master's degree in Icelandic literature, with her thesis specialising in Icelandic crime stories. So what better person to write a crime novel? So that is coming at some point once she's finished defeating global pandemics, because, as she says, I am very busy.
Well, she is. Yeah.
Makes you wonder why she announced it at all, really.
At least Clinton wasn't in office when he decided to start writing books with James Patterson. But there's a long history of politicians writing. Remember, we mentioned this before on the show. Remember Douglas Hurd? He was a writer. Jeffrey Archer. Who? Jeffrey Archer. It's a long tradition. Well, who wrote House of Cards? Michael Dobbs.
I was going to say, Mike. Yeah, he's actually not too bad, is he? He's actually quite good.
Tradition of politicians, where they find the time if they're in office, I don't know, and she's just answered that question pretty well. But so that's it. Well, I've been around the bookshops here in Riga, and indeed, where was I before last? In Cesis, which is a provincial town around about an hour and a half away from the capital. They've got the bookshops are really lovely bookshops, and of course most of the books are in Latvian, so I can't read them. But they do have sections of English books printed in English, but also they have really healthy crime sections, I've noticed as well. And in these you find certain books by certain, not many I have to say, British writers. Linda LaPlante's quite big over here, Ian Rankin's quite big over here, but they're the only two I've really seen. They like Sherlock Holmes, they like Agatha Christie over here.
Was there a Sophie Hannah you spotted? I saw you tweeted or something, or you tweeted or Instagrammed Sophie Hannah, I think. Did you see one of those?
Yes, I was just saying. And Sophie Hannah and the Poirot, her Poirot novels are very well represented and popular over here. And then there's the usual number of Scandinavian authors. Jan Nesbø, of course, is very well represented, and several others. So crime fiction's, like it is in most places, is very, very popular. But I didn't see an Adam Croft book there, and I think that needs to be rectified as soon as possible. I think they go down particularly well over here. So I'm going to meet up, I think, with a publisher in the next couple of weeks and have a little chat and find out what they're doing. So I'll come back to that and tell you more about the state of Baltic noir.
Do yeah. If they're running short,
people get confused, you see, because Latvia is a Baltic state, and the people are either of Baltic descent or Slavic descent, Russian, and there are Russian Latvians and there are Latvian Latvians and what have you. So it's all, I mean, they're all one nation, but the history of this particular country, which I was not particularly au fait with, I knew a little bit, I've had lots of time to go into, and it's it's been fairly brutal, and the people here and their descendants have been through an awful lot of pain, misery, and death at the hands of the Russians occupied the country for many years, and the Germans occupied it during the Second World War, and they've had a fairly devastating time. But now they've, of course, been independent fully since about 1991. And doing very well for themselves in this strange world. But it's a fascinating country. And where I am at the moment is just on the edge of, well, it's in the old town, Riga. And many listeners may have actually been here, if for nothing more than a stag do. But it's a beautiful spot, and but you can't help but feel. I don't mean to be sort of psychic about these sort of things, but you do actually feel that this place has seen an awful lot of suffering in its time. I mean, where I am now was completely bombed by the Germans, pretty much decimated, and that's why it's a newish hotel. But the stories that I've seen in the museums that I visited and things up here are fairly harrowing, as they were pretty much all over Europe in the middle of the last century. So anyway, yeah, I'm learning an awful lot about European history and doing a lot of research. As Linda LaPlante, I can remember saying in an interview, she said, "I love research," and I do too. So I'm sort of taking photographs and notes and all sorts of things. So I'm going to be using Latvia, I think, if Latvia will allow, as a location for one of the Sullivan and Broderick stories in the near future.
Well, we look forward to it. And when you do speak to your Latvian publisher, let them know I've got about 30 books ready to go. I'm sure they'll do very well. It has been said I am big around the Baltics.
Yes. Well, that'll be my first line. Yes. Yes. My friend Adam Croft.
Adam Croft. That's it. Yes. I have been doing some reading actually while I've had a week or two off. And I've got through a book I've been meaning to read for quite some time. I'll hold it up here for the camera, and I will, for the benefit of those who are not on camera, this is what book it is.
Oh, sounds
and
very
as,
nice.
of course, you will have worked out from that, it is The Catch by T.M. Logan, which is quite a thick, meaty book. Shall I read the back?
Please do. That's what we do.
I mean, it'll be quicker than reading the inside, I'll tell you that much. He caught me watching, and our eyes met. That was when it hit me. There was something not quite right about my daughter's new boyfriend. Ed finally meets his daughter's boyfriend for the first time. Smart, successful, and handsome, Ryan appears to be a real catch. Then Abby announces their plan to get married. There's just one problem. Ed thinks Ryan is lying to them. Ed's instincts tell him his daughter is in terrible danger, but no one else can see it. With the wedding date approaching fast, he sets out to uncover Ryan's secrets before it's too late. It's a pacey psychological thriller. It kind of draws you in right from the start. It's one of those. I think you know what I mean from that. It's well written. Sorry?
Is TM the author? TM, what's the author's name? TM?
Well, T.M. Logan, yes, it's Tim Logan. I think he just took the I out. It's probably a typo. And yes, no, it's a very good book. I can highly recommend it. It's one of those I don't want to say too much more about because I don't want to spoil it. But as you can see, it's actually ended up in the bath once, quite literally, and the cover's now peeling.
You do tend to drop that, and that's an interesting thing. You fall asleep in the bath quite a lot, I would have, well, especially after election nights. I would have thought you'd need some sort of.
Well, it's the only time I get to myself, so yeah, I do. The eyelids do tend to droop quite quickly, but yeah, highly recommend this. And of course, even though paper is not waterproof, Kobo devices are. So I'd recommend you get it on Kobo. If you head to kobo.com, have I still got my banner here? Nope. Nope, that's missing, so you can't see it on the video. But if you head to kobo.com, enter the promo code CRIME at the checkout, and they'll give you 90% off if it's your first purchase with them. Or if it's not, use the promo code PARTNERS, and you get 40% off of selected ebooks, which are in the... there's a link in the show notes, is what I'm trying to say, after 2.5 hours sleep.
That's marvelous. I didn't know Kobos were waterproof. I mean, that means you can play with your Kobo in the bath.
You can, yeah.
Moving on. So have we got a book of the week? Have we got a book of a special offer at the moment? We've had 2 weeks, and I forget who our last special offer was.
Well, yeah. There's a book of the month, which is going to. We'll talk a bit more about that next week.
Okay.
But Patreon members can look in their dashboard, and that'll be there. Hopefully, by the time this episode goes up live, Moriarty's on that one. I know.
But still loving Moriarty's Facebooks and social messages. It's fascinating. It really is. I mean, God, the amount of research Moriarty does. I mean, I'm hugely impressed.
Well, yes, we've got to keep people entertained, especially when we're having a couple of weeks off. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
There was an article I saw in the Sydney Morning Herald.
This week, actually, yesterday. The Croft household.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was yesterday, or as it is in Australia, the day before yesterday. It says here, it's talking about how journalists turn to crime fiction. Obviously, of course, particularly Australian ones, because it is the Sydney Morning Herald. They say names like Peter Temple, Jane Harper, and Michael Rowbottom were once journalists and are now big crime writers, successful Australian crime writers. Chris Hammer as well, Tony Jones, who writes political thrillers. He says it's not an entirely new phenomenon because James M. Cain famously began his writing career pushing pen at the Baltimore Sun, which I'm pretty sure is not in Australia. And veteran journalist and crime writer Michael Duffy, who is chair of a festival, which I can't find the name of, the Sydney Crime Writers Festival, believes journalists have often turned to fiction as a kind of natural progression. And he's got an interesting theory on this. He says, my theory is it's the decline of religion. Human beings do have a preoccupation with death and morality, and they used to deal with that by turning up to church and listening to a reading from the Bible and maybe a sermon. But I think a lot of people now get that from reading Michael Rowbottom or Chris Hammer or Jane Harper. It's also said, the Sydney Morning Herald journalist Jacqueline Maley said, journalists are usually pretty independent, quite lone wolf types. They're reasonably cynical and they're very good observers. They're things that make for an interesting character, but they're also skills you can take to writing a novel. I've thought about this a lot, actually. I found that people who used to be journalists, newspaper journalists, do tend to be much better fiction writers. I think that habit of writing tight prose, telling the story without extraneous guff in the way.
Thoroughly researching. Thoroughly researching. Getting to the point.
Yeah. Jumping straight into the story right from the start. Yes, no crap, no waffle. I think works very, very well. And that was quite an interesting article there in the Sydney Morning Herald.
To write a good book, cut out the crap and the waffle.
Yeah, I do try. I get bored halfway through myself, so I cut it out so that I can get the thing finished more quickly. So you're, I mean, as we record this, we are in the UK going into lockdown again tomorrow, which means we wouldn't be able to record together as it is. But of course, you're going to be over there for basically the next month anyway, so you wouldn't be able to
be doing this anyway with just me, just half a mile up the road. So, I mean, isn't it extraordinary? Modern technology.
You should get a view of Riga in the background instead of a view of your back garden.
Yeah. Well, actually, yeah. I mean, it is. We do one in the morning because it's quite nice over the river. It's quite a nice. I don't know whether you can see. There's a nice sunset going on over my
Oh,
big
yeah.
in the way. Look at that, it's quite nice, isn't it? Can you see it?
Oh,
Yeah. Well, there we are.
Lovely.
Lovely.
So are you 2 hours ahead there?
Huh? 2 hours ahead.
Are you 2 hours? Okay, yeah, we can do a morning one then. We can do it as soon as I'm up, pretty much.
That'd be pretty well. We won't be on an election night anymore. So, mind you, we say
No,
that
we'll try
we'll
not
probably
to.
be up
We'll try not to do
all
an
night
election
long for the
night.
next few nights, trying to find out exactly what's happening. But yeah, so lovely. Well, I've had a lovely time, and I'm really glad to be back. And it's lovely to see you. Everyone's all right. We're going to catch up now, listeners, if that's all right. Family okay? Are they?
Yes, yeah, they're all good. Yeah, we yeah. So Joe and I both stayed up and watched it last night. So we're on the go slow today, but thankfully little one was at school, so we've been able to be on the go slow.
From the little charmer that he is. How's the new book coming along? All right?
Yes, going well. I'm sort of halfway through that now, so that should be out. Well, I'm not going to say because this is still public at the moment, but it'll be out.
Ah, okay, fine, sure.
Yeah. So more on that soon. Right. Well, I think we're just about there for the main episode. I'm amazed I've actually managed to hang on for half an hour.
Yeah, well, you've done all the research. I've just listened. It's been delightful. Next one, I will do a little bit of research. So I just haven't had the time. I mean, listen, Adam, I'm a busy film star these days, and it's very difficult to just go back to the old sort of day job of getting staff and preparing and all that sort of thing. But I'll get one of my assistants to come up with something and bring it to my Winnebago, and I'll muse it through. So I'll be a little more prepared, is what I'm saying, for the next broadcast.
Do you mean your Winnebago?
My Winnebago.
Winnebago. Well, we're not done yet because, as any Patreon subscribers will know, we actually record 2 episodes a week, or 1.5 anyway. The second one being Partners in Crime, Arsenic and Old Lace, which is our after show, where we, for some reason, talk about what we talked about in the show and dissect that, and also get through a couple of other stories that we've not talked about this week because we always end up with far too many. So
I'll have warmed up by then. So
yes, and that is an exclusive video episode as well. If you're not a patron yet, then please do consider supporting Partners in Crime. There's a link in the show notes, or you can go to patreon.com/Partners in Crime podcast. But it's probably better to go through the link in the show notes. That's going to be far more reliable, I think. Right. Well, do you know how to say goodbye in Latvian, Bob?
Well, yes. I'll just finish with the fact that I've had a German dialect coach out here, who's a German chap who lives in Latvia and has lived in Latvia for years, and a very charming chap he is. He's a bit of a celebrity in his own right because he has represented Latvia in the European Song Contest.
Oh.
I think you're going to ask me for my votes. Latvia, your votes, please. So yeah, so it was. He's entirely responsible for my dodgy German accent in this. I'd lovely to have someone to blame. I feel like Trump. Lovely to have someone to blame, but yeah. So well,
but at least it'll be in tune.
Sorry. I'll tell you something else. Flying here is absolutely...
I said at least it will be in tune, if not in a falsetto.
Oh, I see. Oh, you keep cutting out a little bit. But flying over here, to anyone who does fly over here...
We've got a delay on the line, haven't we?
We have, doesn't matter. Fly Air Baltic, they've got these new planes. They fly at 41,000 feet, and they're absolutely silent. I mean, they're wonderful. They really are. They're environmentally friendly. They use half the petrol. They don't have to stop at garages to fill up on the way. They're extraordinary. So yeah, I'd recommend because there's still a tunnel to Latvia. You can still, I don't know whether you can, with lockdown, whether you're allowed to fly. I haven't looked at those particular rules, but up to now, there's been a sort of tunnel and various other things that you can sort of fly here and still enjoy yourself. So there we are. So anyone listening who fancies a sort of weekend away, not that you'll be able to have one for the next month, but book and come to see Riga and Latvia.
I don't think there'll be anyone still listening.
I don't think so. I wouldn't have thought so. Shall we get on to Arsenic and Old Lace? And I'll say farewell for this week, podcasters. What am I talking about? I'm overtired too. I'm just rambling on. Just I'm going to have a swim in the river. So I'll see you in a minute. Bye.
Roll credits.
Honest partneri tika iepazīstināti ar Adamu Croft un Robertu Daws, un tos ražoja Adam Croft, motīvu mūziku sniedza Zicesarjans, partneri noziegumā logo un attēlu veidoja Stuarts Bošs, partneri noziedzībā sponsorē Kobo, jūsu vietējo grāmatu veikalu.